I know the next step is what you're talking about.
Yeah, the next step, the invitation.
Yeah. So how do you do it? I mean, I'm too scared to do that at the moment.
Yeah, fair enough.
And I want to, and I realize it's also the next step. I feel like it's the next step in my own personal journey with Jesus to take that risk.
Yeah.
And I probably, deep inside me, I know that I think I won't grow in my faith if I don't take that risk.
That's how I feel
So
too.
there's my challenge.
Yeah.
And I feel God challenging me at that moment. I'm saying,
Yeah.
this is the next step, man.
You feel like you've plateaued
Oh,
until you kind of step in that moment of obedience.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's happening, man?
I got to do the intro.
Oh, sorry. Should put that as the opener.
Kia ora koutou, welcome to Lunch on the Way. We're three guys doing theology over lunch, and sometimes we do that with others. But wait to warn you, though, that what's said here is not yet complete, because like any good conversation, you never want it to end. So please join us for Lunch on the Way. We're not three guys today.
We're two guys.
We're two guys.
Yeah.
Graham has ditched us.
Yeah. Okay, Graham. Well, I hope he's listening in.
Well, he might be listening later.
Yeah.
But
Send in a question, Graham.
he had a supervisor kind of post-grad thing he needs to be a part of.
Oh, okay.
On a tangent already.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
After we did our live recording,
Yeah.
I now look at the camera more.
Oh, hi.
It's like I kind of want an audience.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
You know what I
That's
mean?
so true.
Because I'm
That's
just
a
so
good
used to
point.
being like,
I like that.
I was conscious that people are listening when we just recorded us in the room.
Mm-hmm.
But after I knew people were listening in the room, I'm now hyper aware
Yeah.
of people listening, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, I haven't made that transition yet.
No,
I
you-
still think it's just me and you, so can
Yeah.
say some crazy things.
Oh, man. But, all right, so we haven't, Jonathan, you missed out last week. We talked
what
about
happened?
Kerry Newhoff a little bit and
Okay.
how he was in New Zealand and all that good stuff about
Who's Kerry
his-
Newhoff?
We talked about him before.
Did we?
Jonathan.
Oh, man.
I don't want to get too deep into it. He's a
Okay.
church leader in Canada
Okay.
and more of like he does events and podcasts
Okay.
and things. He used to be a lead pastor for a while, church
Okay.
planning.
Oh,
and
yeah,
stuff like
I
that.
do remember now. Hey,
And-
welcome to New Zealand,
Yeah,
Kerry.
yeah. And he had shifts and he had shifts that he was seeing in
that's
culture
right.
and church and moves that the church he thinks should make.
Yep.
And we had a good conversation around that. And then after I was talking to you earlier just now, I
Mm-hmm.
mentioned how I was doing, that the church is doing Alpha.
Yeah, Alpha.
And
And I
you're,
said, yeah,
you're
I
like,
don't know much about Alpha.
You're like, oh, you are? And I'm like, wow, we really haven't talked in a while. Because I'm like, you haven't been in the loop. Because I don't know how often, I don't know what I say to you, and I don't know what I say to Graham.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
feel like if I talk to Graham, I've talked to you,
Yeah.
and vice versa.
Yeah.
I don't know if you feel like that with me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, beyond that, how are you doing? And we'll maybe get into something.
Oh, I'm good. As you can see, I can't even really remember what I'm doing. I'm just
No.
doing lots of different stuff. I feel like
Yeah.
I'm a jack of all trades at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But-
which is fun.
But your life, your thoughts are like church-related thoughts, kind of consumed around that. At the
Yeah,
moment,
yeah,
When it
that's
comes
right.
to work.
Yep. When it
Yeah.
comes to work, yep. Thinking about the church, which
Yeah.
is fun, which
Yeah.
is awesome.
It's always good to think about the church.
It is, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's good. And just reading a really interesting book by Rowan Williams called "Looking East in Winter."
Oh, I've heard of that.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yes.
Yeah, and classic Rowan Williams. It's super difficult to decipher in some parts.
What's the main thesis? Like, what's he arguing?
Looking to the east, like to the Eastern tradition, but also to the Eastern kind of church fathers, and thinking about how the theology that they were thinking in the 4th century is helpful for us in the contemporary world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that kind of getting rid of that kind of dualism of spirituality and our bodily place in the world. Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's good stuff.
You know what was that might tie into that a little bit?
Yeah.
I watched the season
We're
finale.
coming back to Alpha
We are.
and evangelism.
I
but
know.
Yeah.
I watched the season finale of Survivor, the American
yeah,
reality TV
yeah,
show.
yeah.
Season 45. So this was the end of last year.
Yep.
We're really behind,
Uh-huh.
and we just finished the season finale, and they did at the end of Survivor. There's 3 people who are at the end, and they're at the final tribal council.
Oh yeah.
Where then the people who they voted out,
Oh yeah, they come back.
they are there,
Yeah.
and they vote for who they think should win.
Yes.
So you would think it's all antagonistic, but they all kind of respect the game they all played.
Yes.
And this one person asked from the jury to one of the contestants who was still in, they asked, okay, you've been a very emotional player, and you've really led with your heart and your feelings. Can you tell me how you have done something logical and rational, and you thought first in the game? And the way this person, whose name was D, responded, I thought was amazing.
Wow.
Because it wasn't dualistic.
Okay.
It was actually an integration between both the head and the heart.
Oh, wow, that's interesting.
It was,
Okay.
she said, I don't know what you mean by just thinking with my head, because my social and my heart and my feelings are all tied into what I think.
Oh, wow.
And she said, I think rationally, obviously in scenarios, but it's not separate from my emotions.
Wow.
And I think emotionally, but it's not separate from my rationality.
Yeah.
She didn't say it quite like that, but that's what she meant.
Yeah, okay.
And I thought that was an amazing answer, because when I heard that question, I was like, oh, that's a dualism.
Yeah.
I was like, I
yeah,
noticed
yeah,
that.
yeah,
And then she answered in such a way that it respected that, the person respected that answer, and in the end she won 5 votes to 3.
Oh, wow.
And
that's
it would have been a tie if that
amazing.
person didn't switch their vote.
Wow, that's amazing.
And I was like,
Yeah.
wow. But that's what the
that's
East,
what the
you know?
that's what the East are doing.
Yeah,
exactly
yeah.
right.
It's more of an integration, less of a dualism.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I can't remember who it is, but the classic line, I think, coming out of that book. Although I don't think Williams quotes it, but the theologian is the one who prays, and the one who prays is a theologian. So
Dude,
which
confronting,
really
isn't it?
is really confronting, especially for us who like to think the theologian is the one who thinks, and it's like no, yeah, probably, but the real theologian is the one who prays.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
I think that just we can talk about something else before we get into the second thing. I was this morning.
Evangelist, I think it is. Evangelist. Yep.
That's his thought.
Yep. I think that's his line.
I was reading. I bought a bunch of prayer books and kind of guided liturgy books.
Yeah.
Last year at the end of the financial year, which is coming up again this year at the end of March. So I got to buy a whole lot more books.
Yeah.
To hit my stipend for my ministry development fund within the church, which is great. I love that. It's my money that I can't use for anything but developing myself.
Wow.
Right? Which is great.
That's
tax breaky kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And essentially, I bought this one book, and I hadn't really engaged with it properly at all. I really didn't open it. It's a really nice cover, feels good, and it's called Be Thou My Vision.
Okay.
And I was like, that's my favorite hymn.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's a nice thing. And so I picked it up this morning.
Have you heard Van Morrison cover that? It's awesome.
I haven't. I've heard of, well, maybe I have.
Yeah.
Anyway. I picked it up this morning mostly out of frustration around having inconsistent habits.
Yeah.
Of prayer and devotion.
Yeah.
And even I've written down a list of lies that I believe that I shouldn't believe as well around that. Where one of the lies is that dedicating a time for prayer and reading my Bible is more legitimate than spontaneously kind of giving gratitude and prayer to God throughout the day. For some reason, that's a lie I believe.
Yep.
Where
Right.
I was raised, where you need to dedicate the morning a chunk, or it needs to be systematized and organized. And that's like the real intimacy with God happens in those times.
Yes.
Where I'm like, I know that's a lie.
Right.
Because Paul says, "Pray without ceasing."
Right.
So regardless of that, this is what I was feeling this morning. So I was like, I want to develop better rhythms, and I know it's a good thing to start the day. Like that's not a false thing to do.
Yeah.
But I want to use that as a springboard for the rest of the day, right? So I open up this book, and it's organized so wonderfully.
Oh.
It has 3 kind of ribbons for bookmarks within it, and I'm like, books like that it means you need to go back and forth around a lot.
Yeah.
So it has day 1 to 31, and it has essentially a church service kind of liturgy. And it's very basic, it comes from a call to worship, a confession, call to worship with a song, and then a confession with an affirmation or consolation. And then it goes into, you read a bit of a catechism from the Westminster Catechism. That's in the back of the book, and you just read one little bit. Today is like, where do you find your comfort? And my comfort is in God, and that was good. And then went back to a song. Then it said, read a section of scripture within the reading plan at the back of the Bible. So I read a section, not the whole thing. And then you go back again, and then it says, now pray this prayer. And then after it says, pray for yourself, personal, the church, and for the world. And just had those and said, just go for it. So I went for it. And then it finished with the Lord's Prayer and I think that was it. And when I went through that, I'm like, this is essentially a little mini church liturgy, to be honest. And I went for it. I was like, I know some of these songs. I can sing the doxology. I'll sing it. And I don't know this song. And so I looked it up on YouTube, and I was like, oh, it's just a chant. So I just chanted it.
Wow,
and
that's cool.
And I was like, it was really weird, like having that the layers built in, and having this, not the system, but having kind of this rhythm of going through essentially like redemption and how you actually, getting a clear picture of who you are in relation to who Christ is.
Yep.
Your sinful self, but righteous through Christ, and forgiven and invited into something bigger than yourself. And that's essentially what it did over the course of about 15 minutes.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I was like, I could do that.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is and after 31 days, you just rinse and repeat and do the day one again. And I was like, I can do that.
That's great.
And it brings a whole lot more life to me just, opening my Bible, reading a chapter of Mark, sitting down in silence, praying, and then having, your phone distracting you because people are messaging you and stuff.
Absolutely.
Where at least, like, if I get distracted, that's okay because I come back to the kind of the path, right? So that's what I did this morning.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And
that's great.
I thought it was really refreshing.
Yep.
And we'll see.
See how it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. Yeah, I do it. I try to do a similar thing. So to follow that same pattern and to hear those kind of truths again. I see it like it's like the slow work of bending out, straightening out a bent piece of wood. Like I feel like that's what our life is like. It's a bent piece of wood, and it's that slow work of soaking it in water and then putting frame around it to slowly get it back into that kind of straight shape. Yeah, and that's what the work of the liturgy does. It's that slow soaking in the water, which is the Spirit of God, and then the Spirit of God is slowly like straightening out your life again. Yeah, that's how I kind of imagine it. Yeah, and the liturgy is the braces that bind you up again. Yeah.
So I'm contrasting that. Yeah, and I know the deeper work that God wants to do in our hearts is spirit led. Yeah, right, and it's spirit infused or done, or we can't just will ourselves to be different on a level of sanctification and holiness. Right. But I'm contrasting that with the reality that there is neuroscience. Yeah, and there are habits, and there are patterns. Yep. And there are things that we do that we can actually change, and I know people have changed because without, necessarily having an explicit relationship with God. Yep. And I was reading this book, Atomic Habits, and I think I know that book. Yeah, I just went right to the cheat sheet online because I'm like, it's just a bunch of principles, and I'm just let's just get right to it. I don't need to read this book necessarily. It's going to tell stories and stuff, and I'm like, I'll just get to the good stuff. And I'm reading this, and it's like, how to form good habits and how to get rid of bad habits is essentially what it's doing. And it's a lot of just managing your life. Yeah. And I don't think it's bad or wrong, and I think it's really helpful, and I could see where there's value in breaking bad habits. Yeah. But even reading that, I'm just like, I don't think I even have the power to even begin to break some habits, or the power to even begin to instill better habits into my life. Yeah. And I don't even have the ability to break my knee-jerk gut reaction habits, Yeah. So at the very least, I kind of got frustrated, and I was like, let's just turn to this liturgy. Yeah. And I'm like, I know theologically I believe this, so let's just see what happens. Yeah, yeah. And what would actually happen if I embraced for 31 days this liturgical form of read and response and prayer and worship? Yeah. Yeah, every day. Yeah. And I'm like, wow. Is it essentially doing the same things that the neuroscience and Atomic Habits book is talking about? Right. Or is it really like a God thing where because you set your mind on things above where Christ is, that power and that kind of authority, that way of viewing the world changes who you are. Yeah. I'm not quite, I don't know, I don't understand the two and how they play with each other. Yeah. I don't know. Have you had thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think I have. I mean, again, man, this comes back to the very beginning of our talk about dualism. I mean, God works through the material world. So when he it's a both and here. It's a rhythm between our own kind of forming new habits and God doing a deep work that doesn't come that reaches beyond just the material world. So it's a both and. So when I think of those guys doing habits, yes, I think definitely it will change their life. But ultimately, where are they drawing the deep work from? Like, where is the source of their life? And I think what the Christian, the kind of the liturgy and the kind of what you're talking about ultimately reaches to something that goes beyond this world. And that's where the true power lies, and that's where the life that will never run out comes from. And so that's where I would always say the Christian liturgy is always way more powerful and life-changing than just changing like a new gym regime.
Yeah.
But both of them will change your life outwardly for sure.
Yeah.
But only one of them will deeply change your life inwardly. And because the gym regime is still built on your own will. It's still built on what you think life is about.
Yeah.
But when the Christian life is welcomed into a deeper mystery, that life ultimately springs from the source of God. So that's what we're getting in touch with. And that's what we invite people into. Yeah, something like that.
No, that's good. I think I had a thought and I've just lost it. I forget it now.
Yeah.
Flip.
I'm
really bad about that. I didn't know people actually were like that until I listened to another interview by somebody.
Right.
And they were doing the same thing that I do all the time, where it's like, I lost the thought. I'm sorry. No, I think you're right. And I think when it comes to the Pharisees, here it is. Here's the thought.
Yeah.
The Pharisees in the New Testament, like they had patterns and they had habits and they had systems and they had ways of going about things.
Huge.
And they were probably the most habitually positive people in that society, where they did all the right things and they had all the ingrained patterns and rhythms and systems in their life to be able to orient themselves towards God and to worship Him.
Yes.
Yet Jesus still said to them, "You're whitewashed tombs.
Yeah, that's
You look
right.
really great on the outside, but you're really a graveyard and dead on the inside."
Yep.
And I think the reason why he did not only the Beatitudes, but the Sermon on the Mount, where he upped the ante, where the law is an external mirror.
Yeah.
I'm like an internal scan.
Yep.
Or what do you ultrasound?
Yep.
It's like Jesus ultrasounds you.
Yep.
Yeah, okay, you didn't murder somebody. We can all see you didn't do that.
Yep.
But you hate them.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, exactly
I can see
right.
what's underneath.
Yeah.
And how do you actually get rid of what's underneath?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So, man, I was reading about this morning. So the proverb that says, what was the proverb? Like, take care of the heart in order to train your eyes or something like that.
Oh, that's good.
So
keep talking.
So interestingly, it isn't like train your eyes so it doesn't lead you into sin, but train your heart. Because it's the deep inner core of yourself. It's the deep well in yourself that needs to be refreshed for the outward life to be changed. And it's definitely not the other way around. And so often we can think it's the other way around. So I think what they're getting at is like, it's not your eyes that are leading you into sin. That's not where sin truly hides. It hides deep inside your heart that you want something else that is not God. And then you allow your eyes to lead you in that way towards what you really want. So the Bible is always turning us back to saying, what is it that you truly want? Because that's where true transformation takes place. And I think when we're doing the liturgy, when we're shaped by the church's tradition, it's always leading us back to the source of all of our life, our true life. So habits and the desire for God go together, but it's the desire for God that truly shapes the habits that you will start to form. So I'm trying to get rid of that dualism that it's one or the other. It's both. It's not. Because we're material beings and we are shaped by our habits.
Well, I guess the thing is, I think most of these habit people, and not habit, we're all habit people.
Yeah.
I think the self-help habit training and disciplining books, apart from God, they're good.
Yeah.
They obviously they work to a certain extent, but I don't think I think they're actually trying to address different problems. So one would be like a habit would be like you always reach for food whenever you feel sad.
Yep.
You need to break that habit.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't think it's a moral or amoral or immoral thing.
Yep.
It's just a thing that you know would lead to a lifestyle you don't want.
Yeah, that's right.
But that the habit forming and the deep thing that's really under there is it's not the food. It's not even that you're sad.
Yep.
It's why are you sad?
Yep.
And the habit reforming isn't going to change the thing below the thing that's making you instinctively go towards food.
Yeah, that's right.
It's that's where you need the power of God to actually change the thing underneath.
That's right.
And I think that's the big distinction there.
Yeah.
And obviously habits can then be formed to then allow yourself and enable yourself to be positioned in such a way that God's Spirit works in you.
Yeah.
Where, for example, James says, draw near to God and God will draw near to you. Yeah. It's like you can actually create habits within your life where you draw near to God and God does that deeper work within you.
Yeah.
That the habit is good to get you to the place where God's power works.
That's where I was going to go with
Yeah.
that. Exactly right. I think that's right. Like the habits are there to get you in a place where God can get at you.
Yeah.
And so often we construct habits around our life that actually pull us away from the place where God can actually do His work in us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right.
Yeah. So this is not what we were going to talk about
No,
today.
it's not. Yeah. Should we get back to that?
Let's get back to it. Oh, my back. All right, here we go. Stretch. All right. So here's the thing. Let's do a bit of preamble.
Amble it up, man.
I'm hoping to learn something from you today, okay, Jonathan? I've already learned a lot. I think this is what's going on. Here's the arc of evangelism in my Christian upbringing in life.
Yeah.
All right? I was a Christian, became a Christian, followed Jesus when I was 11-ish, 12, I can't remember, somewhere in between there. What it meant to help other people see the hope that I had in Jesus was pretty minimal at that point, outside of quite well-structured church institutional programming. So an example of that would be I worked at a summer camp, as many people might know, with me referencing that, where we had people who weren't Christian who came to the camp, and that was the structure. It was clearly an explicit Christian camp. And not explicitly Christian, not an explicit, not just swearing and saying all a bunch of stuff. And essentially these kids come in ages 5 to like 18 in different camps for different age groups. And there would be moments where they could be led to Jesus, and it was great. And my life was changed as a kid at that camp in different ways. And I know other people as well. But it was the structure for evangelism was actually within the camp. And it was an incredibly fun environment. People got outside of their normal rhythms of life, and they went into this week-long environment, and God showed up, which was amazing. Take that then to the school year as a high school student and teenager, late teens. I didn't know how to kind of have proper conversations about faith outside of the church structure or outside of the institutional structure.
Yeah.
And what I'm noticing is that there's less opportunities for people now, more than it has in the past. And not to say that it doesn't happen, it just happens less frequently, I think, in some churches and many churches, where people enter into the institution to then be evangelized.
Yes.
And then be changed.
Yep.
Where there's more of an impetus and need for people to go out.
Yep.
And I'm going to contradict that in a little bit.
Yeah,
All
I can see that.
You know where I'm going with this. So anyway, that's the thought. So when I go into university, I go into this program called the Praxis Program. It's a 2-year Associate of Arts degree that flows into the 4-year bachelor's degree of pastoral ministry. And not everyone could have done that track, but everyone could have done that track, but not everyone did. And what that track did was it put us in positions of having to share our faith in different contexts. So whether it was prisons or soup kitchens or youth corrections facilities or even just straight up street evangelism. But it was still housed within an institution and within a structure. And the structure was a university training pastors, and there was a framework, and you guided along that framework. And it was really helpful. I found a sense of boldness and that I didn't think I had before. I learned how to authentically share my faith and not feel like it was all on me. I'm just, letting God do His thing and using me as a way. And it was great because I would actually see people come to know Jesus, sometimes directly through me or through others, and especially in environments where people are at their lowest. Yeah. It's hope, especially prisons. But then all of a sudden I get into church, and I work at a church, and I graduated, and I noticed that those opportunities are not as present as they used to be in my late teens and my early 20s to kind of share my faith. Let's just call it that. And at first I'm like, I'm always looking. In my early 20s, I was always looking. I was always trying to find ways in. And a good way in was just telling people who are older than me that I was a pastor, because they were shocked that I was 23 or 22 years old and a pastor. Yeah. And I was like, this is a great angle to go with. Because they're like, how did you become a pastor? I'm like, let me tell you my story, And so it was that was a really effective way just to talk about Jesus. And then as I got older, that became less effective. Right. Because it became less of a question mark the more gray hairs I got on the side of my head.
Right. And, of course.
Yeah. And I've noticed that I've actually insulated my life to not be in environments where sharing your faith is obvious and necessary. And I wanted to know what your experience, before I go into the next bit, I want to know what your experience with that, or even thoughts around that might be, even within your own life.
Yeah.
Have you felt the same thing, or what's kind of God doing in your heart around what does it mean to share faith?
Yeah,
in general.
Yeah, man, it's a really good question. I hear everything that you said because I was brought up in a Christian home, and I evangelism wasn't really something I actually ever thought about. It's just because I don't know, I always knew about God and never really had to share anything with friends because all my friends were in youth group and all my friends were Christian, right?
Yeah.
And it wasn't, a funny thing is, I think, skipping forward a whole lot of years, it wasn't until I went to a secular university when I realized that all the jargon that I had
didn't make any sense. Yeah.
In fact, it was so off-putting because it had a whole lot of cultural baggage with it.
Yeah.
And then I didn't know really how to talk about faith at all. So... And what has been an eye-opener for me is to come back to really basic human needs and start there with people. What's your hope for the future? What's going wrong with the world at the moment? Just basic stuff that has no Christian jargon at all. And there, funnily enough, Jesus already is. doing deep work.
Yeah.
But it's keeping the conversation at that kind of basic, fundamental human kind of who am I? Where am I going? What's wrong? Those kind of questions. And that's where evangelism sits for me at the moment.
So can I be a bit more prodding?
Yeah.
How often do those conversations happen?
Yeah, funnily enough, they actually happen quite a lot.
I'm not saying that judgmentally. I'm just genuinely curious.
You know where they happen most?
Yeah.
On the side of the soccer game.
Yep.
On the soccer field.
Yeah.
While I'm watching my kids play soccer.
Yeah.
With the other parents.
Can you tell me a story?
Man,
I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm genuinely curious.
Yeah, I mean, it's stuff like. It's really strange stuff like, I don't have a job at the moment. Someone's saying to me, hey, I'm really searching for a job and I feel like, I'm really struggling with stuff.
Yeah.
And then the conversation just opens like, yeah, man, I get struggle, the world, it just seems like in a crazy place. Yeah. Why is the world in a crazy place, man? And I'm like, people seem to have no hope, or people seem to think things are meaningless.
Yeah.
So the conversation just naturally arises out of that kind of stuff. Or you talk to people and you say, what do you do? Hey, I work for a church. Oh man, I used to go to a church. It was actually really cool, but I drifted away from it. Why'd you drift away from it?
Yeah.
There's no Christian jargon here.
No.
It's just basic human experience.
So what are you sensing then? What's the picture? Because I'm going to pivot in a second.
You know what? This is what I'm sensing.
What are you sensing?
Yeah, what I'm sensing is that there's an openness again to spirituality. There's an openness to Christianity because people are realizing that nothing really has hope anymore, and maybe Christianity, this Christianity thing does have something to it.
That's what you're sensing.
Yeah,
and just general conversations about.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
People are curious and interested again, even if they are really weary.
Yeah.
They kind of want to know what's going on. Mostly because a lot of the people that, a lot of the Christians as well, mix really easily with lots of different groups of people.
Yeah.
Like I tend to see the adults who aren't Christians on the soccer field. They group together, they stay together. But the Christians just everywhere, man.
Yes, what you notice.
Yeah, we just walk around. Because
Crazy.
we don't, it's
Yeah.
like, nah, who cares? Like, I'll talk to you, I'll talk to you, I'll talk to you. And
Yeah.
people are like, what is so different about this person?
Yeah. Are all the people on your kids' soccer team, are they from your church?
There's a lot of people from church
Yeah.
there. And I think that's why we really stick out.
Yeah.
We really stick out, man.
Yeah. Like, you know each other more than just through soccer, and people notice that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but you're not family.
We're not family.
Yeah.
The cool thing is, man, all of us are going through the same struggles as all the other people that aren't Christians are going through the same struggles.
Yeah.
Yet we hold a hope, and we hold it in a totally different way than they hold it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the interest for them.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you're going through a tough time? You mean you can be a Christian and go through tough times? Yes. But this is how we get through it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's a little bit of...
No,
where
that's
it's at.
good.
What about you?
No, so my question is more rhetorical than anything.
Yeah.
So I think you're right. I've had similar conversations with people that are like that. So it's like a foundational understanding of we both perceive the same thing.
Yes.
And we both feel the same things that are happening.
Mm-hmm.
However, we both look at the world differently.
Yep.
As a Christian myself, or I don't know, not quite sure how you look at it because I haven't asked you enough questions.
Yeah.
But my question is, how do you invite somebody into seeing the world like you do, explicitly, not just in a way of like, this is what I do, but you do your thing.
Yeah.
But how do you actually invite somebody in to experience that? That's really what I want to.
Yeah.
I really want to dive in on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I think it's harder than it used to be, in the sense that there's less assumptions about reality.
Yep.
That people used to have in common, and there's various reasons for that. And also, like you said, there's a lot of baggage that the church has kind of perpetuated, and also that might be well perceived or I guess incorrect.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff going on, but still, I always go back to like, man, I just really want to pray for somebody,
Right. Okay.
and have them come to know Jesus.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how does that happen? Just off the street, not even off the street. How does that just happen even within the relationships, let alone your family or your friends or coworkers or colleagues or neighbors?
Yeah.
And the reason why I ask that is because I think there are people who do that.
Yeah.
They're the people who have the gift of evangelism.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right.
And there's actually not that many of them.
Yeah.
Not to say that there aren't a lot of them. That might be misleading. It's to say that most people in the church aren't those people.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yet we're all kind of called to reflecting this hope that we have. You know, everyone give a reason for Paul says, give a reason for the hope that you have.
Yes.
And the hope should draw people in.
Yes.
But I don't think it's passive. I think there needs to be an invitation extended to some capacity or another.
Yeah.
For people actually to come through.
Yeah, I do.
It's like I went to a concert, my brother-in-law's a hardcore band concert.
Okay.
The other night, and outside of that was another venue.
Hardcore.
Yeah,
Hardcore.
yeah.
Cool.
Was another venue.
Yeah.
And it was an Indian wedding.
Oh yeah.
I could tell because all the guys who were smoking outside looked like they were dressed for a wedding.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, wonderful outfits, really sparkly, like full on.
Yep.
And I really wanted to go see. I wanted to go see what it was like in there, but no one invited me in.
Right.
But I really wanted to go and see.
Interesting.
I wasn't going to walk in by myself. I felt like that would have been rude.
Yeah.
Inconsiderate. I also wouldn't know how to walk in by myself.
Yeah.
But I really wanted somebody to invite me in.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we invite somebody in? I'm not talking about if you're an evangelist listening to this, you're like, you just invite them in.
Yeah.
No, most people don't have the same gift set or passion set or even personality set that you have.
Yeah. Or who likes whitewater rafting, social whitewater rafting as much as you do?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because it's it's treacherous.
Yeah, it is.
And the people who have the gift of evangelism typically don't care what you think.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is not most people.
That's right. It's
you
not
know?
most people. It's not most people.
So what do you think?
It's a really good question.
Yeah.
I think it's a tough question, man. And if I was to be honest, I know that that's the next step for me.
Yeah.
To be an inviter
Mm-hmm.
and to be way more explicit. Because I tend to function on a level of like, they're like, hey man, I feel like there's something more to life. And I'm like, Why do you think that? I'm way more philosophical and just trying to keep keep those questions alive for them and say, hey, that's a really good question to be asking.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to kind of to let those questions rise in their life again. And I think that's a legitimate way to do evangelism.
For sure.
Is to be a person that opens life up for people again and say, hey, maybe this isn't as set as I thought it was. Maybe there's something more going on here that is than I can articulate at the moment.
Yeah.
But I know the next step is what you're talking about.
Yeah, the next step, the invitation.
Yeah. So how do you do it? I mean, I'm too scared to do that at the moment.
Yeah, fair enough.
And I want to, and I realize it's also the next step. I feel like it's the next step on my own personal journey with Jesus to take that risk.
Yeah.
And I probably, deep inside me, I know that I think I won't grow in my faith if I don't take that risk.
That's how I feel
so
too.
So there's my challenge.
Yeah.
And I feel God challenging me at that moment of saying, this is the next step, man.
You feel like you've plateaued until you kind of step in that moment of obedience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is like, rock climbing where you have to leap for the next stronghold.
You gotta, what's it called where you leap? What's the technical term?
I don't know.
Flip. It's, I used to rock climb, so I used to know
okay.
it. Anyway, it's where you like let go of both hands.
Yeah,
and you jump up to the next hole.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Do you feel that too?
I 100%.
Are you feeling that too?
I do. And
that's interesting.
This is where it connects in with what the long preamble.
Yeah, cool.
That invitation, that next step, is much easier within an actual structure.
Okay.
That is built.
Yeah.
So, like I said, with the Christian camp, the structure was the camp itself.
Yep.
So the invitation was easy because I knew the process and what was going to happen. What happens at churches that are incredibly seeker sensitive?
Yeah.
That's the structure.
Yeah.
The structure is the church itself,
right,
and inviting people to something that is a bit different, but doesn't look too different. I kind of understand it, but at the same time, who's this Jesus person?
Yeah.
So that's the invitation's there.
Yeah.
And within the Praxis program, the invitation was just explicit because of the structure around me. We went out, and I was in a group of people, and we just invited people to follow Jesus after a service, or after we gave them food, or after we prayed for them and asked if we could pray for them, and they felt something, and then we went from there.
Yeah.
So this leads me into what I'm most excited for.
This is good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Coming up.
Man. Yeah.
And it's to properly run an alpha program.
Right.
I don't like to use the word program. Alpha, just call it alpha.
Yeah.
Run an alpha.
Yeah.
And if you don't know what that is, essentially it is a 10 to 11 week course, if you want to call it that, where there's a meal at the beginning and there's non-Christians who are invited. That's the invitation to this thing. And there's small groups, and it's video based, and essentially it's a non-judgmental high invitation moment for people to be able to express ideas about faith and belief and God and who Jesus is and spirituality from a Christian perspective. So I get excited about this because what it actually does is it doesn't rely on anybody to know what to say.
Yep.
And it doesn't rely on only the evangelists in the room showing up. Actually, they might be the worst people to be in that room because they would be so gun happy or trigger happy, if you will, just to go for it.
Yeah.
When it's a process.
Yeah.
Because I think, at least within secular Western countries, and if you would consider yourself somebody who's deeply entrenched in that, it takes more than just one or two or three or four or five conversations around faith to actually be able for someone to actually accept an invitation to something more spiritual.
Yeah.
And that's why it's over a period of time.
Yep.
And essentially the small group leaders, they just ask questions. They don't ever give their opinions. The worst thing you could do is say, well, that's actually a little bit wrong what you just said. No, actually, we should bring out, like, what do you think is the purpose of life?
Yeah.
Tell me.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not going to tell you you're wrong.
Yeah.
We're just going to share what life is like from a Christian perspective through the videos, and then we're in relationship with each other, which I think is great. Oh, man. And then I know it's really formulaic, but it's for a purpose.
That's good.
And then the scary bit is this: around week 8, on week 8, there's a retreat
Yeah.
So you invite
Yeah, that's
people to
right.
go out,
Yeah.
either ideally for an overnight thing,
Yeah.
somewhere away,
Mm.
and essentially you hang out, you're in a relationship with these people for the last 8 weeks. You know them to a certain extent at this point. And then you honestly, you just let it be, and you just say, God, you're welcome here.
Yeah.
And
You
and
see what happens.
and you invite people to be prayed for.
Yeah.
And it's nothing crazy, nothing scary,
Yeah.
nothing weird. And it's like, and God shows up.
And also the most dangerous prayer you could probably pray.
It is the most dangerous prayer. Holy Spirit, come.
Oh,
and you're
dude.
like, all right.
Yeah.
And people come to follow Jesus after that weekend.
Yeah.
But it's a whole process. And it's not necessarily, this is a thing where I think it pairs well with what you just talked about. You have these deep conversations around life and hope and purpose and meaning and, the world seems a bit weird right now. What am I actually doing?
Yeah.
And there's no structure around people actually processing that. Because I don't know about you.
Yeah.
I know this sounds like a big alpha ad, mostly because I'm just really excited about it.
No, I think you're onto something because I've got something to add to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because people need time to process. And I
Yeah.
genuinely think, outside of a superficial comment that a friend might make or they might make with a friend, they don't properly think about life in an abstract sense and the direction of life.
That's right.
And what life is all about.
That's true. And that's why those questions can be so like a little bomb that you set off in people's lives.
Because life is busy. Like I go throughout my day and I go home and my weekly routines are well entrenched.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, especially with a kid.
Yeah,
Once you have a kid,
more and more,
your life is so much more
Yep.
systematized. And nap time is this time,
Definitely.
bedtime is this time, wake up at this
Yep.
time,
and your thinking space, your head space,
Yep.
shrinks.
You have no margin.
Significantly.
You have no margin to think
No,
about
you
what's
don't.
going on.
No.
And then all you want to do at the end of the day when the
No.
kid's asleep is just watch
That's right,
television.
that's right.
You get tired enough to go to
Yep.
sleep, you rinse and repeat.
Yep.
There's no actual
Yep.
get outside of your normal routine to think about
Yep.
things that are important metaphysically about faith.
And this is why people wake up in their 60s
Yep.
and go, "Oh, holy crap! What should I? I'm going to die soon. What should I do with the rest of my life?"
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's a reason why.
Yeah.
There's actually a huge, let's use some Christian jargon here, a harvest field
Yeah.
of people in their retirement.
Yeah.
If you're listening, those are your people.
Yeah.
Those are your people. They're waiting for you. They're
Yeah.
wanting to be put back to work in
Yeah.
many kind of ways.
Mhm.
Get them evangelizing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I listened to a podcast by Nicky Gumbel, the guy who kind of pioneered Alpha.
Uh-huh.
And he said just the same thing.
Oh, really?
They have a Caleb. They have a Caleb or a Peter and a Caleb ministry training stream.
Right.
So Peter is the young guy who's says the wrong things,
Right.
immature, but tons of passion.
Yes.
We're training those people to be ministers and
Yeah.
vicars in the
Yeah.
Anglican Church, but we're also training people who just retired from being a doctor or just retired from being an engineer, and they're 65 or late 60s, and they're like, "What do I do now?"
Yep.
Well, have you considered the Caleb stream? Caleb being quite
Right,
old
right.
in the Bible, and he's like, how about you train to be a vicar as well?
Yeah.
And they have tons of them
Oh, man.
coming through
That's amazing.
for that very reason.
Ah, that's so epic, man.
Yeah.
Okay, so getting back to your question,
Yeah.
I mean, what you were just talking about. So, yeah, the structure, allowing those questions to come up, but then a structure that kind of starts to answer those questions for people. Is that what Alpha is?
Yeah, for sure. Like the videos present a Christian perspective on spirituality.
Yep.
And that's the jargon I want to use because I think it resonates most with people. It's like, oh, because most people are spiritual.
Yes.
They just are.
Yeah.
So what do the Christians have to say about this?
Yeah, yeah.
I think is really intriguing. And so the videos address that. The people in the room don't.
Yep.
All we do is just facilitate discussion around it.
Oh, right.
And it allows people to at least give a second hearing. Give Jesus or Christianity or God a second hearing. And as the weeks go on and relationships get built, there's an opportunity for people to actually be like, all right, this is all kind of in my head, but you're saying I can know this God?
Right.
Let's just give prayer a try
Yep.
and see what happens. And that's where the invitation is like second, if I would say the second invitation is extended.
Okay. So talking about invitation then, how do you get these people to come to Alpha?
Well, that's the thing.
Right.
Yeah. That's the thing. That's the bit where it's like, this is the most. So I don't know who's listening right now who goes to my church. We're launching this in 6.5 weeks. So I'm gonna tell you all about my concerns and worries and I'm gonna talk more about kind of a ministry philosophy as well.
And then I want to say something about being a theologian,
Yeah.
because there's probably people that are listening to this who would consider themselves theologians,
Yeah.
I just want to say something about that.
Dude, okay, let's do it. So that's my biggest worry.
Yep.
Is will people show up? I had a conversation with somebody at church on Sunday saying, are people going to, who's coming? I'm like, well, I'm building it. We're building it.
Yep.
Hopefully they come.
Yeah.
And it's more, we have a strategy.
Yeah, okay.
But 90% of people who come through, personal invitation from other people.
Yeah, that's right.
That's it.
That's right.
You know, and so my big challenge to people who are
like workplaces. Are you talking workplaces, soccer
family,
field?
People you
Family,
rub shoulders with on a
right.
weekly basis.
Okay.
Those are the people you want to invite, and who've expressed at least a little bit of openness. And also, there's a certain segment of the church that I would consider to be nominal, who mostly go through the rhythms of church life because their family does. Mm-hmm. And I think this is for them as well, to really understand what's going on and to have a moment with Jesus if they would like to accept that invitation. So, yeah, that's my biggest insecurity. Is around will people show up?
Yeah, it's a tricky one.
And I think people will.
Okay.
I just need to also pray deeply towards that. Yeah. We have the church praying towards it. We have a prayer team specifically. We haven't been organized yet, but this week I'm going to organize them. That's specifically praying for that and praying for Alpha, and we'll be praying during the sessions each week.
Yep.
Don't have to pray for the full 2 hours, but pray at least during the somewhere in that 2 hour slot specifically for the people there. And I think this lends more into my general ministry philosophy. I think we need to do more things that push us outside of our own control and require God to actually show up.
Yeah.
I think too often goes into our businessification of church, where it's like, well, what's our strategy? What's our plan? I'm like, those are all good things. We need to have a strategy. We need to have a plan. But I think our vision and our dream and what we think God is calling us to needs to exceed our strategy and our plan. Where our strategy is Alpha, we're going for it. We're explicitly using this as an evangelism tool. It is not a discipleship tool in the sense of helping someone who's a Christian become a more mature Christian.
Yes.
It could do that, but that's not the goal.
Yeah.
And I'm not making that the goal.
Yeah.
The goal is people who aren't Christian to become Christians.
Mm-hmm.
But with that being said, how are these people going to come in? That I can't strategize. I can strategize that to a certain extent, but God's got to show up.
That's out of your hands.
He's got to bring people in.
Yeah.
And I think within church, budgets and within church direction, and with even the direction within our own personal lives with our walk with Jesus, we can make things so easy and comfortable for us that we don't actually step outside the boat and rely on God like Peter did to kind of keep him afloat.
Yeah.
And I think we need to do that more often.
Yeah.
And so people ask me, are people going to show up? I'm like, we're praying for it.
Yeah.
We're praying for people to show up, and we're praying for people to come and know him. And
interesting the posture that puts you in.
It does.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So what are your thoughts?
Oh, I love all that, man. My two thoughts that I've just had, man, maybe these are just personal, but I'll share them anyway in case they're helpful. I was just thinking, I was sitting here thinking like, am I a theologian? Like, am I a real theologian?
What do you mean?
Because two things have hit me this week. One is reading that Rowan Williams book and the line, the theologian is the one who prays. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, do I pray? Mm. I mean, do I?
I don't know.
I really pray? Yeah, I'm asking that to myself. Really. But if the theologian is one who prays, not just one who thinks, not just one who debates, not just one who reads books, not just one who teaches theology. No. The theologian is the one who prays. Mm-hmm. That's one thing that has challenged me this week.
That's rocking.
It's rocking me. And the second one is this, though, and after this talk about evangelism, I think they go hand in hand. The one is someone who's a very, very good theologian said, "What is theology? What is theology?" He said, "Theology, in the broadest sense of the term, and what has always been right from the very beginning, is the presentation of the faith, not the argument for faith, not apologetics for the faith. All those, yes, all good." But the real theology is the presentation, simply presenting it to people. That is what the theologian does. And I think that's evangelism. it's not an argument for it. It is just to simply say, let me tell you about the faith that I have. That's what the theologian does.
Mm.
They are ones that both evangelize and pray. And if you're not doing those two things, then you need to ask yourself, am I really a theologian?
Mm-hmm.
And those are really hard-hitting for me.
I think they're hard-hitting for most people.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'll leave you with that. Those are two things that are really kind of, yeah. Because when you said to me, do you ever go further and say what your hope is? No, I don't. And I'm like, okay, maybe I'm not a theologian.
Yeah. Well, I'm conscious of what people might be hearing.
Oh,
right now.
Okay, cool.
And I think what you said is entirely true. But I also think that evangelism, prayers for everyone. We already know that. Prayers for everyone.
Absolutely.
Evangelism's for everyone as well.
Yeah.
That's not to say that some people are, more gifted or have a spiritual gift of evangelism.
Absolutely.
I think what alleviates some of that I wouldn't say guilt. It might be guilt, it might be shame. I don't know. Or this lack of congruence with who God wants you to be compared to who you actually are right now.
Uh-huh.
I think a lot of that is alleviated through participating with others.
Yes.
In the work of evangelism.
Yes.
It's not just a you thing.
Yep.
It's not just am I doing a good job? No, it's like, what is your church doing? How can you be a part of what your church is doing?
Yeah.
And doesn't mean you need to be an evangelist.
Mm.
And you can actually support the work of what other people are doing as well.
Yes.
You don't need to be the coherent one in the conversation.
Yep.
You don't need to be the person who has all the answers. I don't even think that's even true in a one-to-one conversation with people. I think, honestly, like if people were to ask me, like, what does the church think about this, that, and that? I'm like, I don't want to talk about that.
Yeah.
I'm like, let's talk about you.
Yeah. Okay.
You tell me more about yourself. Like, what is going on in your life?
Yeah.
What are your hopes? I don't even think I need to have the answers. All I need to do is hear what people have to say.
Yeah.
And just honestly, at the end of that, be like, can I pray for you?
Right.
I think it's as easy as that.
That's cool.
I think it's as easy as that on a personal level.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like an altar call on the street corner. I don't think it's that. But I do think it requires some boldness. But I don't even think most people need to do that. I think some people are being called into just partnering with what the church is already doing.
Yes. Okay.
And if the church isn't doing anything, asking questions on what can we do as a church.
Yes.
Because one thing I like about, which is what we're addressing at our church with Alpha,
yeah.
we went through a season of massive change around transition of the senior leader into retirement and a new senior leader coming in. A big shift, massive shift, took all of our energy and time and effort, understandably so. And it was a good transition. I think it went very well and has gone very well. But because of that, we couldn't put our energy and effort into other ministry initiatives or even strategic vision or things that we think God is calling us toward outside of just finding a new pastor.
Yeah.
Which God is calling us us to that, right?
Absolutely.
So there was this massive appetite within the church to do the work of evangelism.
Yeah.
And through who wants to help out with Alpha, that has been made abundantly clear.
Yeah, awesome.
And people understand, they're like, and one thing I love about Alpha so much is you don't actually have to be the person who has all the answers. You don't have to even be someone who's outspoken.
Yeah.
I told somebody, I won't say who it is.
You just need to be hospitable at the table, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
And humble and charitable in your conversations.
Yep.
That's it.
Yeah.
I told somebody who was one of my friends, I said, you know what, I think I would be a bad small group leader. Mm-hmm. I think you would be a great small group leader.
You're right.
My personality is a bit too in your face at times.
Yep.
And but you are such a humble person, and you have a posture of humility.
Yes.
That I think people will be more open in conversation with you than they would with me.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think you'll be better than I would.
Yeah.
And they didn't see that, but they still signed up for it, and they said, "Yeah, I'll do it."
That's so.
So cool. I'm like, here we go, And so it's someone who traditionally might not have that evangelistic evangelism gift. It gets to exercise that in a different way.
Yeah. Awesome.
And
grow in their own faith
within a church structure.
Yeah,
within a system that which brings people along a process, which God is there before, in the middle, and at the end.
Yep.
Yeah.
So Joey's looking for people.
The QR code is on the screen right now. No, but on a serious note, if you're listening to this and you're not a part of the church that I help lead, if you could pray towards this, that would be really encouraging. Mm-hmm. That would be great. Pray that people show up and that people encounter Jesus, and that the food and the details are all kind of hopefully taken care of by then. And this is a big, in my opinion, this is the big God thing, is we're praying towards doing a simultaneous Chinese alpha.
Oh, okay.
Right next to it, because there's a Chinese, there's a Mandarin, completely contextualized, filmed in Southeast Asia.
Wow.
Chinese alpha.
Okay.
Yeah. And we don't have anyone to lead yet.
Wow.
And also, I don't think anybody who is English second language knows about it yet.
Yeah.
And we got 6 weeks. But we're like, you know what? Lord, if you want it to happen.
6 weeks.
Yeah. Lord, if you want it to happen, even if the group is like 2 or 3 people.
Yeah.
I'm like, let it happen.
No problem.
Yeah.
That's right.
Make it happen.
Yeah.
So you could pray towards that as well.
That is so cool.
But back to we got like 2 minutes.
Okay.
So
I don't even care if this doesn't go. This doesn't go to air. This has been a good conversation for me.
No, I know. This is.
I'm like, oh yeah, okay, that's cool, man.
Yeah, I
love the challenge. It's great.
To be honest, I didn't mean to challenge you too much. Like,
oh, you should. It's awesome.
Well, it's one thing challenging you without the microphone in your mouth.
Oh man,
it's another thing challenging you when other people are listening.
I so don't mind. It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, man,
Good.
dude.
I'm glad I
would just give it all away if I could just keep on moving, man.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
I'm glad I found a kindred spirit.
Yeah.
I also don't care about being seen as someone who isn't perfect on camera.
Man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because life's too, you know what? Life is just like, it's too short, like in the sense of like what we have to do right now.
Yeah.
To worry about being fake.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
So you might as well just be honest.
Yep.
And then look in the mirror.
Yep, exactly right.
And
it's so funny, eh? Man, I've been so hungry to just to know more things of God, to know God better, to know Jesus better, to follow Jesus better. Since like the PhD and all that kind of stuff, to me it doesn't even matter. It's so weird to say it.
The PhD.
Yeah, it's
okay.
been
not the Jesus bit.
Yeah, but no, thinking about the PhD and just all these kind of things, I couldn't even care less.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh yeah, it doesn't matter, man. Nothing matters, and as long as if I'm not hungry for Jesus, it doesn't matter. None of this matters.
Yeah, yeah. Honestly, those are the thoughts I come back to. As a teenager. Honestly, I would be like, if I was homeless, if I had nothing, would I still be good? Yeah. And like, well, if I have Jesus, I'm still good. The older you get, the harder that question becomes.
Yeah, exactly.
But even then, the contemporary version, I have to be confronted with is the Kiwi kind of dream.
Yes.
And owning a house, doing this, doing that, and I'm like, and even people who are older, and don't own a house, it's actually looked down upon to a certain extent. It's like, what were you doing?
Yeah.
And a part of me is like, you're gonna die.
Exactly.
And your house won't be your house anymore. Yep. So what does it matter?
Absolutely.
Oh well, for your family and for the future. I'm like, yeah, okay, that's a fair point.
Yep. Help
out your kids and your grandchildren in the future. I get that. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, compared to Jesus and what life really means, and the purpose and loving others, and embracing that, it doesn't matter if you own a house or not.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter if you die when you're 30 or compared to 90.
Yep.
What matters is what you do in the time that you have.
100%.
And who you love.
100%.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sorry, that was a bit of a tangent at the end.
I know.
All right.
But it was a good one. You can always cut it out.